You see, women, by nature, are love itself. They embody it. But what we often miss is that love, in its truest form, isn't something you can possess or control. It's not something you demand. Love is like water. It flows. It adapts. It nourishes. And just as a river knows no bounds, love, too, must be free to move, to grow, and to inspire. But here's the paradox. While we crave love, we often seek to confine it, to mold it into shapes that fit our expectations, our desires, our insecurities. And when we do that, we forget the essence of love itself. So, the woman, the feminine energy, is a reminder, a living embodiment of this truth. Love isn't an object or a goal. It's a way of being. And when you understand that, you don't hold love. You flow with it, not you, as you imagine yourself and as you ordinarily censor yourself to be, but what is really and truly you at a much deeper level. But you see, when we use the word game or play in English, we usually tend to mean something trivial. We divide life very strictly into play and work. Other cultures don't do this. And that's one of the awful, shattering features of our culture, this division of play and work. Most people are working at tasks they hate, just to make enough money to stop doing it and play. This is perfectly ridiculous. Nobody needs to do that. What do you get with work done in this way, heartlessly, without joy? Money. And what can you do with it? Supposing you earn time to spare and money to spend, what is there to buy? The answer is other fake, joyless products made by people who also hate their work. There's a certain phoniness, a lack of essential quality in almost all the work we perform. Why? Because the work isn't done for the work itself, it's done for money. And play? It's considered separate from work. Work is serious, play is not. In fact, we have a strange incapacity to truly play because we often approach play with an ulterior motive. We think play is good for you. And so, we do everything because it's good for us. We judge the physical world not with our senses but in theory. We believe the proof of the pudding isn't in the eating, it's in the chemical analysis. Take college cafeterias, for instance. It's often my fate to take lunch in them, and I wonder, what must be happening to the intellectual life of the nation as a result of the food served there? Professors, graduate students, and undergrads all eating this kind of stuff, it must be catastrophic. Everywhere I go, it's the same fare, a so-called salad, a piece of wretched iceberg lettuce with a dollop of cottage cheese and a wedge of pineapple on top. Then there's the beef, slices tormented for hours in an electronic purgatory, sloshed over with a rubber-coated gravy made of watery paste and bouillon cubes. Vegetables? Repeatedly boiled carrots and corn, sterilized because that's important. And dessert? A pie, a slab of beige goo with a crust like reconstituted cardboard, topped with sweetened shaving cream squirted from an aerosol can. This food has been analyzed by dietitians and departments of home economics and is found to contain the right amount of calories, proteins, carbohydrates, and vitamins. Yet, it's utterly miserable. This is a result of academic politics, a feud between departments. Home economics has won out, rotting the brains of historians, anthropologists, mathematicians, and physicists with this miserable fare. And why? Because everything is judged by whether it's good for you. But if you inquire carefully into what this good for you is, it's taboo. The whole culture would fall apart if we found out what it truly means. What is this good? It's always something in the future. It never happens. All these vitamins and nutrients do is keep you in a state of survival, never catching up with anything. Because, you see, time is strictly an illusion. There is no such thing as time, just as there's no concrete thing called the equator. Time is a measure of motion, like latitude and longitude are measures of the Earth's surface. But there is such a thing as timing. Timing is skillful rhythm. And you can't attain proper timing if you're in a hurry, if you're rushing to the future. The future is never going to arrive. When you hurry to get to it, you're always punished. For example, instant coffee, TV dinners, airplane food. All these are the result of the illusion of time, that there's something good for us we're going to get to. This illusion stems from an educational system geared to literary and mathematical pursuits, training people to be clerks, salespeople, insurance agents, and bureaucrats. Material competence is taught only reluctantly, and only to those deemed too stupid to be intellectuals. As a result, the basic arts of life, farming, cooking, dressing, furnishing, lovemaking, are utterly neglected. There's no sophisticated training in these areas for the average person. And so, there's nothing on which to spend the time we save and the money we earn, except trash. Fake cards, pasteboard houses, styrofoam bread, vitamin-enriched, of course. All this because we've fallen for the illusion of time. What's necessary for a cultivated society is devotion to the present, the material world, not the theoretical. In Sanskrit, the word Maya has a double meaning. In one sense, it refers to the physical world, a marvelous work of art. But in another sense, it means measurement, all the ways we divide and categorize the physical world. Time is Maya. The future is Maya. And because of this illusion, we don't value play. We play to refresh ourselves for work. But that's not real play. Play is true absorption in the delight of the moment, like dancing. You don't dance because it's good for you. You dance because you're happy. But we have an odd incapacity for happiness. We're happier expecting good things to happen than when they're actually happening. And so, we say of a thing that we consider bad, it has no future. Well, nothing has a future. There isn't a future. There's always a present, and one has to understand this as a kind of basic approach. This way, one can also use the word play or game in a sense that is not trivial. We don't think, for example, that when we hear a performance of a Bach cantata, or better yet, a purely non-symbolic thing like a fugue, we don't think that's trivial. We don't think it's trivial to play the organ in church. We do not think that the plays of Shakespeare are trivial. They're plays. Play, you see, in the sense that I'm using it, is a musical thing. It is a dance. It is an expression of delight, in the sense of Blake saying, energy is eternal delight. For example, consider the art of Islam, the arabesque. These aren't pictures of anything. They're just fantastically intricate, beautifully colorful designs. They are play. And, according to this thesis, the universe is just like that. It is a very, very elaborate play system. The fundamental elements of this play, the Chinese call yang and yin. Yang means the positive, and yin the negative. Yang refers to the south side of a mountain, which is in the sun, and yin to the north side, which is in the shade. Yang refers to the north bank of a river, which is in the sun, and yin to the south bank of the river, which is in the shade. Symbolically or prototypically, yang is male and yin is female. That's not to cast any reflections on women, but rather to say that yang is aggressive, and yin is yielding. Yang is convex, yin is concave. Now, here's the secret about opposites, just as important as realizing that there is no such thing as time. The secret is this: they appear to be as different can be. We say of opposites like black and white that they are poles apart. But in using that phrase, poles, you imply a connection between them. Just as there is a connection from the north to the south pole of the earth, or between the north and south poles of a magnet. They are two ends of the same stick, two sides of the same coin, two opposite points on the same sphere. And that means they go together. In Chinese, this is called arising mutually. As Lao Tzu says in the second chapter of the Tao Te Ching, when all the world knows beauty to be beautiful, there is already ugliness. When all the world knows goodness to be good, there is already evil. For being and non-being arise mutually. What confuses people is that they don't see this. They think, for example, that the positive is something real, whereas the negative has less reality, that it doesn't exist. We think that, for example, the space in which this universe floats is a nonentity. It has no importance. And because we see energy manifesting in the positive aspect of things, and no energy manifesting in the negative, we're afraid that energy, and its delight, is threatened by nothingness. We fear that it's going to be swallowed up, and that in the end, darkness will win. We feel that about ourselves, and we feel it about the universe as a whole, because energy is effort, and effort, after a while, tires us. You can't keep it up, and so we think darkness must win. According to Chinese philosophy, that is a hallucination, because energy cannot be manifested without inertia. There must be something to push against for there to be any manifestation of energy. You cannot dance without a floor to use your energy against. When energy, or any kind of motion, is completely unobstructed, there's a sort of squash, a fizzle, and nothing happens. Because fundamentally, as we shall see, motion is only realized when there is stillness. And so, energy is only realized when there is inertia. The positive is only realized when there is the negative to bring it out. These things work together. But when you don't realize this, you become anxious. You are afraid that the dark side is going to win. Now, that's always going on. So, if you are disposed to worry, there is always plenty to worry about. You make plenty of money and have no troubles about that, and then you start wondering if you're going to get a disease. The doctor says, no, it's all right. Nothing wrong with you. Then you wonder if you're going to get into an accident. You take precautions, and then you wonder if there's going to be a political revolution or whether your house is going to be robbed. There's always something. So, this kind of worrying is a completely useless pursuit. Yet, we feel a little guilty if we don't do it because it's somehow ingrained in us that a proper amount of worrying shows good responsibility. It's a sign that you're concerned. Paul Tillich used this word, concern, in a special way. Quakers always use the word concern, and so do socially conscious people. When we say, I'm concerned, it means I have a frown on my face. I'm worried about you, about the nation, about the war. Tillich said that religion is ultimate concern. He described God as the ground of being, borrowing from Eckhart. He preferred this term because God still carries associations, while the ground of being feels more abstract and neutral. The ultimate concern, then, is about the ground of being. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I knew Tillich, and he was a wonderful man. But when I think of concern, I interpret it differently. Instead of a frown or worry, I see it as something more like amazement. Existence is peculiar. I can't fully explain the feeling because I don't know quite how to phrase the question about existence. What is it? Why is it? If you were going to have an interview with the Lord God, and you only had 5 minutes to ask one question, what would you ask? You'd have plenty of time to think in advance, but you'd realize, question after question, no, that's not really it. That's not what I want to know. Do you exist? No, that's not it. Am I having a hallucination? No, not that either. How can I even be sure this isn't a hallucination? Eventually, you'd reject all those sorts of questions. When you come down to it, you don't know what to ask. There's a questioning in your mind, but it's not clear or precise. It's more like marveling at the fact that anything exists at all. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It reminds me of a friend who visited a Zen master. After much effort to arrange the meeting and an interpreter, he finally sat down with the master. But when the moment came, he said, now that I'm here, I don't know what to ask. I just feel like laughing. The Zen master replied, well, laugh. And they broke into laughter. That feeling of wonder, the marvel at being, is what I mean by ultimate concern.